Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of The Gunman. So today we're going to be doing another spray gun review on the brand new SATA X5500 Future Edition. So ultimately this gun here is just like all the other recent SATAs, so it's just a X5500. You can get it in quite a few different tip sizes and all the standard air caps. Well, both of the standard air caps that you're used to, which would be the RP and the HVLP. So they do range in different fluid tip sizes as well, but this time I opted to get the 1.2i, and there's actually also a couple of different nozzle patterns that you can get. So there's the I and the O. I've been into detail about that in another video when I did my review, but basically the I is a more flat pattern. I find that it doesn't put as much material out. You get a little bit more of a finer atomization with it. So that's what I went for. So I went for the 1.2i RP. I found RP is generally better for clear coat. HVLP is more suited to base coat, but even then, personally, I don't even think that it's as good for base coat as the RP, as you will see in this video. So generally, when I get a new SATA, I get the RP and then I go straight to clear coat with it. But I've decided this time, I thought, you know what, I may as well just see what the I pattern 1.2 is like for spraying base coat, and I thought I may as well include the base coat stage on the job that we're going to be spraying today. So we'll start off by spraying some base coat on a Subaru bonnet. But as you can see, that's a pretty cool looking gun. Like it's very subtle, I guess. It's not like over the top as far as the design goes, but you know, as you can see there, it's got the globe on it. I reckon it's a nice shade of green, and I think it looks good with the black highlights, including the trigger and the adjustment knobs. But I just thought I'd give you guys a quick look at the ANI, because I've found that this thing is one hell of a beast of a gun. Just a very quick look at that, because that's what I've been using recently, and I also used that gun for the inside, so I thought it would be a good little comparison, even just for myself, to see which one I prefer for base coat. But just keep in mind that this is the 1.2, so you may be thinking, geez, that's a bit slow, you know, but it is the 1.2. And on the other hand, I'm now spraying Stando Blue, and the Stando Blue does like to go, it likes to be on wet, you know. So if I didn't put this on nice and slow and wet like this, it would not look right, like the metallic wouldn't sit down right. So I must admit, to be honest, this is probably not the best setup for Stando Blue. I would probably go the 1.3. I don't know, I've never really used the HVLP for Stando Blue base coat, but to be honest, I've never actually found a gun that is incapable of spraying Stando Blue. It's more about how you spray it. So as you can see there, you put the first coat down nice and wet, and while that first coat is wet, you come and put your drop coat. You hold that gun back. Ultimately, you want the biggest fan as possible. You actually leave the pressure the same from first to second coat, and as I say, while that first coat's still wet, you hold the gun back a little bit and increase the overlap actually, so you're going even slower on your second coat. So you do actually churn through a bit of color when you're doing this, but I've actually found it sort of a comparable amount of paint that you use on this 2-coat system than what you do with the standard 3-coat system. So I guess you're putting less coats on, but you're putting more on per coat. The fact that it's a one visit is actually, I don't know, a good thing for me. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm talking about the paint, not the gun. But there we go. We've got the clear coat in the gun, obviously dried that base coat down and straight onto the clear coat. And as you can see, well, I noticed it anyway, that the passes do speed up now that we're onto clear coat. A big part of that is the way that you also spray this clear coat. So I'm using the Standox Performance Pro clear coat, and I found that with this clear, you're best off going like ultra skinny on the first coat, and I do what I call a round robin type thing. So I'll put my first coat on the bonnet, right, and then I go and put my first coat on all the other parts, and then I come straight back to that bonnet and then put my second coat on. So no real flash off times, I guess. It's only as long as it's taken me to get around the rest of the parts in the booth, come straight back to the first part that you painted and go on with a heavy coat. You may have noticed that I did actually turn the pressure down a little bit, so I went down to 1.8 bar yeah, I just like to drop the pressure down on the bonnets and roofs and boot lids on your second coat. Like, I wouldn't do that on the side of a car because you'd probably risk getting maybe even a little bit heavier orange peel, possibly even runs and things like that. But yeah, look, I can actually notice some fine mottle in this bonnet. So I don't know if you guys can notice it, but it's not that bad, but it's noticeable. So it probably wouldn't be the gun that I'm going to be using going forward for base coat. But you know, yeah, maybe I should have just gone a little bit slower on that drop coat. That probably would have remedied it. But you do have to be careful. If you do go too wet with this Stando Blue, you can actually run into other issues. You can get these really small pinholes coming up in the base coat if you go on too wet. So you do have to be careful about that. But yeah, I guess you've just got to find that sweet spot. But yeah, I'll probably be going back to the ANI for base coat. So I don't know, I just find that it gets that base coat. I probably wouldn't have had that mottle. I actually really love that ANI for clear coat as well. So I have actually done another video on that. I do highly recommend looking at that video. Yeah, all things considered, it's probably the better gun. I actually find it performs a little bit better, and it's, well, probably half if not a third of the price. So ultimately, would I recommend one of these? Well, that's entirely up to you. If you like what you see, well then go for it. But would I spend my money on it? Hell no. I think they're way overpriced. I don't think they perform any better than the rest of the top of the line guns, and I'm not saying that they perform any worse. Like, as I say, I could have gone for the 1.3 if I wanted to go a little bit faster. But yeah, on the other hand, like, let's just say you put this up against the Pro Light. You know, the Pro Light, you've got the 5, I think it is, different air caps to choose from. You've got 3 or 4, maybe. I think you can even go 1.1 on the fluid tips as well. And they all go onto the one gun, and that's probably half the price. So look, they definitely don't represent good value. It's somewhat of a luxury item, I would say. You know, they're priced a fair bit higher than most of the rest, or all of the rest of the spray guns on the market. So yeah, and do they perform any better? I'm not convinced that they do, and I do this day in, day out. But look, all of that aside, it's up to you. If you like these guns, go for it, buy one. If you do want to buy one, there will be a link in the description of where to get one from Spray Guns Direct, and I would like to say a big thanks to them. Even if you don't decide to get one of these guns, whenever you do decide to get a spray gun, I highly recommend going to Spray Guns Direct. They are a good company and they do provide a good service. Another thing that I saw recently was one of my workmates accidentally dropped his Sardajet X5500, dropped it onto the back of the gun, and the air adjustment knob cracked off, and it turns out it's a piece of plastic covered in plastic chrome. I was blown away by that. So I was like, wow, man, Sarda, they're like the most expensive gun on the market, and they're made out of plastic. Like, some of the parts are made out of plastics. I wouldn't recommend them. I don't think they're any better than the guns of half or even a third of the price. But hey, they do look good, and they're definitely capable of providing a good finish. So if that's your thing, well then go for it. Anyway, until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gumming out. I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you're more than welcome to go over and check out some of the merchandise we've got. My personal favourite is those spray suits, so they're a good quality Colad branded spray suit with a Gunman logo on it. There's also hats, drink coolers, hoodies and t-shirts, so be sure to go over and check out the link in the description if you are interested.